Husband accused me of cheating when I told him I was pregnant. I agreed to a paternity test only to discover he was the one having an affair after finding messages on his phone. I, 26F, have been married to my husband, Mike, 27M, for just over a year. Recently, I found out I was pregnant. The pregnancy wasn't planned, but we hadn't been using protection every time we got intimate, and I wasn't on any birth control. I hadn't seen a doctor yet, but I figured I was only a few weeks along. I was nervous but happy when I told him the news, expecting him to share in my joy. However, his reaction was far from what I anticipated. Mike immediately became upset and asked how this could have happened. I explained that we hadn't been using protection consistently, so it wasn't that surprising. But instead of understanding, he grew even more angry. We argued back and forth for a while, and then he dropped a bombshell. I should take a paternity test because there was no way the baby was his. I was stunned and hurt. I've never cheated on him, and I've never given him a reason to doubt me. I didn't understand why he was accusing me of such a thing. I told him that his request for a paternity test felt like a slap in the face, but he argued that it was valid, and if I had nothing to hide, I should agree to it. He claimed I was being dismissive of his concerns by being upset. In the heat of the moment, I snapped back at him. I told him that if he doubted my loyalty so much that he thought I'd cheat on him and have another man's baby, then I didn't want to have a child with him anymore. I said I didn't want to be tied to someone who didn't trust me. He got even angrier, accusing me of being unreasonable and dismissive. In the end, I agreed to the paternity test, but stood by my words. We didn't speak after that, and he left for work the next morning without saying a word. I confided in a friend about the situation, hoping for support, but instead, she told me I was wrong for saying what I did. She said I should have considered his concerns because, in her opinion, they were valid. I was floored. I couldn't understand why he would accuse me of cheating when I had been nothing but faithful. It was heartbreaking to think that the man I loved didn't trust me. Edit 1. Some people suggested that maybe Mike had gotten a secret vasectomy, which is why he thought the baby couldn't be his. I did ask him during the argument if he had a vasectomy or was infertile, but he dismissed that possibility and continued insisting the baby wasn't his without giving any clear explanation. Edit 2. To clarify, Mike has always been neutral about having kids. When we were dating, I told him that not wanting kids would be a deal breaker for me, and he said that he was fine with either having them or not. I assumed that meant he would be okay with the pregnancy, but apparently that wasn't the case. Update. I wasn't sure what to expect after my initial post, but I received a lot of feedback, and I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. It was overwhelming, but it helped me process everything. I also want to apologize for not replying to comments. There were just too many to keep up with. After Mike came home from work that evening, I decided to approach the situation calmly. I cooked his favorite dinner, hoping to create a more relaxed environment. Once we sat down, I told him I was willing to take the paternity test, but that his accusation of me cheating hurt me deeply. I asked if his reaction was out of fear or anxiety about the pregnancy, and I apologized for what I had said during the argument. His response, however, left me cold. He flatly told me that he wasn't willing to talk about anything until after the paternity test. I asked if he was sure he didn't want to discuss it further, but he angrily shut me down, telling me to drop the subject entirely until the test results came in. Things have been extremely tense since then. After our conversation, I kept thinking about the situation, and a sinking feeling in my gut started to grow. Many people suggested in the comments that Mike might be cheating on me, and though I didn't want to believe it, something just didn't feel right. That night, after he had gone to bed, I decided to check his phone. I know snooping isn't the healthiest way to deal with problems, but my gut was telling me something was off. When I looked through his messages, I found out that Mike was, in fact, cheating on me. And to make things even worse, it was with the same friend I had confided in about the pregnancy. The friend who told me I was overreacting. The text between them revealed that their affair had been going on for months, starting just after we got married. The most heartbreaking part was reading the messages exchanged after I told him I was pregnant. He sent her texts saying things like, "I don't know what I was thinking when I decided to sleep with her without a condom. She says it's mine, but I swear to God it better not be. I'll be happy if it isn't. I'd rather be with you than be stuck with her. He even told her that he didn't care if I thought he was an awful husband for asking for the paternity test, all while she was encouraging him and agreeing with him behind my back. I was devastated. I took screenshots of their messages and sent them to myself, then deleted all evidence from his phone so he wouldn't know I had seen them. I also checked his laptop to ensure there were no backups of the messages there. From what I gathered, Mike hadn't gotten a vasectomy, nor did he think he was sterile. He was just trying to cover his tracks and create doubt because he didn't want a child with me. I haven't confronted him about the affair yet. My plan is to go through with the paternity test, get the results, and then present him with both the test results and the proof of his cheating before filing for divorce. I'm not sure if this is the best approach, but my mind is a mess right now. I've also scheduled an STD test just to be safe, and I'm seriously considering getting an abortion. I never imagined my first pregnancy would be filled with so much pain, and I don't think I can go through with it under these circumstances. Thank you to everyone who congratulated me, though. It means a lot. I'll update again after the paternity test, or when I feel like I need to share more.
Story 2. I cared for my dying uncle, and he left me his cabin and $100,000 instead of leaving it to my family. Now they're furious, demanding I give it up because they want it for themselves. I'm a 24-year-old guy living a very different life than the rest of my family. I didn't graduate high school, but got my GED and now work as a welder and hunting guide. The rest of my family is much more successful. My dad is a lawyer, my mom used to be a nurse, my brothers own businesses, and my sister is married to another lawyer. While I'm happy for them, they tend to put me down for what I do. My mom will make comments like, "When are you going to get a real job?" They didn't help with my welding school, so I had to work at an auto shop to pay my own way. They also go on fancy vacations without me, claiming I wouldn't appreciate the culture or food. So I've been distancing myself from them over the years. It's pretty clear we live different lives, and they're not interested in sharing theirs with me. The one family member who did appreciate me was my great-uncle, Greg. Greg and I were close. He was into the outdoors like me, even though he worked in law. We went hunting together when I was young, and that kept us bonded over the years. About a year ago, Greg was diagnosed with cancer, and in the last few months, his health really deteriorated. I took time off work to care for him since nobody else in the family wanted to deal with an old man dying of cancer. He didn't have kids, and his wife passed away 15 years ago, so I was all he had. A few months ago, Greg asked if caring for him was hurting me financially. I told him that I was cutting back on work, but I loved him and wasn't doing it for money. A couple of visits later, Greg revealed that he was changing his will to leave me his hunting cabin, which is more like a small house on 70 acres, and $100,000 to help fix it up. He planned to donate the rest of his estate to various causes he cared about. Greg wanted to die at home, so he was taken out of hospice and passed away shortly after. In his final hours, I was with him and his dog, Luna, who will now be living with me in the cabin. Greg's last words to me were, "We had a pretty good run, didn't we?" He died peacefully, and I made sure to bury him next to his wife. Now, here's where it gets tricky. My family has no idea that Greg left me the cabin and the money. They've been talking about how much Greg was worth and assuming they would inherit everything. They had already started planning to convert Greg's cabin into a family vacation home and take a trip to Europe on Uncle Greg's dime after he passed. They didn't seem too interested in Greg when he was alive, but they sure are interested in his money now. I've been holding off on telling them about the will, knowing they're going to lose it when they find out Greg left me the cabin and money. The rest of his estate is being liquidated and donated, so they're not going to get the windfall they're expecting. My family can be shallow and greedy, and seeing them act like vultures over Greg's money has really opened my eyes. To be honest, I'm considering cutting them out of my life completely once Greg's estate is settled. I know Greg always said that family is everything, but seeing their true colors has soured me on them. It feels like I don't belong in their world, and they've never really accepted me anyway. I'm planning to use the money Greg left me to fix up the cabin and start my own welding company. It's what Greg would have wanted, and I feel like I owe it to him to honor his wishes. But at the same time, I don't know if I can handle the fallout when my family finds out what Greg did for me. Would I be the asshole if I cut them out of my life after everything's settled? Greg's properties and how they're going to be split. Greg had 3 homes, including the cabin, which is small, but on a large piece of land. The rest of his assets are being liquefied and donated to causes he supported, except for the cabin and the $100,000. which he left to me. Update: Greg passed away peacefully not long after I made my post. His last words to me were about how we had a good run. And honestly, despite the grief, it was comforting to know he felt at peace. He was buried next to his wife, just like he wanted. The will reading went exactly as I expected. Greg left me the cabin, $100,000, his guns, fishing gear, and his dog, Luna. He also left some sarcastic parting gifts for the rest of the family. For example, my dad, who complained endlessly about Greg's contractors, got a bag of old hand tools. My sister, who is into wine, got a box of wine glasses. One of my brothers, who's a lawyer, got a drawer full of pens for his blossoming legal career. Everyone also got a small amount of money for a round of beer in Greg's honor. It was typical Greg humor, and honestly, I think it would have made him laugh to see their reactions. Watching my family go from fake sadness to excitement to pure rage was honestly surreal. My mom kicked over a pot of flowers, and my brother threw a fit when he realized he was getting a fucking box of pencils instead of the money he was expecting. My family wasn't so much angry about the cabin and money I got, but they were furious about Greg's larger assets being donated. It drove them absolutely insane. I've been moved from the disappointment son list to the enemy of the family list. I haven't heard from most of them since, except for my mom, who called me last week pretending it was an emergency. It wasn't. She wanted me to either give the cabin to my sister or sell it to her for $200,000, which is way under its value. My sister wants to raise her future children in the countryside, and apparently, Greg's land is the only place in the world she can do that. I told my mom that my sister and her husband, who have a double income and a nice house in another state, can buy their own land if that's what they want. After I said no, my mom and sister started sending me guilt-tripping messages about how selfish I am for keeping the cabin and how Greg would have wanted me to give it to them. They even tried to show up at the cabin when I wasn't there. But luckily, I had already installed cameras and no trespassing signs. At this point, I've blocked all contact with them and I'm planning to change my phone number soon. I've also set up more security around the cabin in case they try to pull something, but I'm not sure how to keep them from showing up unannounced in the future. It's been a rough few weeks, but I'm focusing on the cabin renovations and planning to fully move in once my lease is up on my apartment. Luna and I are doing well, and Greg's legacy will live on in the land he loved. I don't regret cutting my family out, and while it's been hard, I know it's the right decision. Greg would be laughing from the grave if he could see how this is all playing out. I'll be signing off for good soon, but I wanted to thank everyone for their advice and support. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed our stories and would like to hear more, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue bringing you captivating tales and new content every week. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. We appreciate every one of you for being a part of our storytelling journey.